What would you do if the most powerful billionaire CEO in America discovered that the old janitor he insulted every day secretly owned his entire company? And what if that secret had been hidden for over 20 years? Today's story reveals a shocking corporate secret, a hidden billionaire, and a lesson that changed thousands of lives forever. Before we begin, subscribe to Dark Secret of Powerful CEOs for more incredible stories about billionaire CEOs, corporate scandals, hidden fortunes, and powerful secrets that the world was never supposed to know. Ethan Blackwood was known as the king of Silicon Valley. At only 42 years old, he had built Titan Global into one of the largest technology companies in the world. Private jets, luxury mansions, exclusive parties, magazine covers. Everything about Ethan screamed success. But success had changed him. The humble young entrepreneur who once slept in his car had disappeared. In his place stood a man feared by employees and admired only from a distance. Every morning, executives trembled when they entered his office. One mistake could cost them their careers. One failed project could lead to public humiliation. Ethan believed fear created excellence. And nobody dared challenge him. At least, nobody except one man. An old janitor named Samuel Brooks. Samuel was 70 years old. His gray hair and worn uniform made him almost invisible inside the giant company headquarters. Most employees barely noticed him. Yet every morning, he greeted everyone with a smile. "Good morning. Have a wonderful day. Keep believing in yourself." His kindness confused many people, especially Ethan. One morning, Ethan entered the building and found Samuel cleaning near the executive elevators. Samuel smiled. "Good morning, Mr. Blackwood." Ethan barely glanced at him. Then Samuel said something unexpected. "You should smile more. Money isn't everything." Several employees froze. Nobody spoke to Ethan that way. The CEO slowly turned around. His eyes narrowed. "What did you say?" Samuel remained calm. "I said money isn't everything." Ethan laughed coldly. Coming from a janitor, that's easy to say. The surrounding employees looked uncomfortable. But Samuel simply smiled again. "You'll understand someday." Ethan shook his head and walked away. What he didn't know was that Samuel carried a secret capable of destroying everything Ethan had built. And within days, that secret would shake Titan Global to its foundation. For 20 years, Samuel had quietly worked as a janitor. Nobody questioned him. Nobody investigated him. Nobody imagined that every evening, after cleaning floors and emptying trash bins, he returned to a private estate worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Years ago, Samuel had been one of Titan Global's original founders. In fact, without Samuel, the company would never have existed. But after a tragedy involving his family, he disappeared from public life. Rather than seeking fame, he chose anonymity. He sold part of his ownership but secretly retained a controlling interest through a complex trust. Only 3 lawyers in the world knew the truth. Everyone else believed Samuel was just a poor old janitor, including Ethan. And that misunderstanding was about to become very expensive. One afternoon, Titan Global faced a massive crisis. A whistleblower leaked confidential documents exposing unethical business practices. News channels exploded with reports. Investors panicked. Stock prices collapsed. Within hours, billions of dollars vanished. Ethan locked himself inside the boardroom. Executives argued. Lawyers shouted. Investors demanded answers. For the first time in years, Ethan felt fear. Real fear. The kind money couldn't solve. Then an emergency message arrived. The board chairman's face turned pale. "We have a bigger problem." The room went silent. "What problem?" Ethan asked. The chairman swallowed hard. "The controlling shareholder has called an emergency meeting." Everyone exchanged confused looks. Nobody knew who the controlling shareholder was. For years, the person's identity remained hidden. Ethan frowned. When is the meeting? The chairman looked directly at him. Tomorrow morning. Nobody slept that night. Because tomorrow would reveal one of the greatest secrets in corporate history. The next morning, Titan Global's boardroom was packed. Executives sat nervously. Investors waited anxiously. Ethan Blackwood remained confident, believing he could handle whatever was coming. Then the board chairman stood up. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to meet the controlling shareholder of Titan Global. The doors opened. Everyone turned. And their jaws dropped. Walking into the room was Samuel, the old janitor. The same man Ethan had insulted countless times. The room fell silent. Ethan stared in disbelief. This can't be real. The chairman nodded. It is. Samuel Brooks owns 56% of Titan Global. Gasps filled the room. Samuel calmly took a seat at the head of the table. For the first time, Ethan realized the old janitor had more power than anyone in the company, including him. Samuel looked directly at Ethan. You always judged people by their position, not their character. Ethan lowered his head. For the first time in years, he had no words. Samuel continued. 20 years ago, I helped build this company. I stayed hidden because I wanted to see what kind of leaders would emerge. The room listened carefully. And sadly, power changed many of them. Then Samuel revealed another bombshell. If Titan Global is going to survive this crisis, things must change immediately. Everyone held their breath. Would he fire Ethan? Would he take over the company? Nobody knew. Samuel looked around the room. Then he smiled. I believe in second chances. Ethan looked up, shocked. Samuel wasn't there for revenge. He was there to teach a lesson. But the biggest challenge for Ethan was still ahead. Because rebuilding trust would be harder than building a billion-dollar company. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe to Dark Secret of Powerful CEOs for more shocking billionaire secrets, corporate scandals, and powerful life lessons. Proceed to Chapter 4. The chapter where Ethan learns the dark truth behind Samuel's disappearance and the tragedy that changed his life forever. The board meeting ended, but Ethan couldn't stop thinking about Samuel. How could a man worth billions choose to work as a janitor? Why would someone hide their power for 20 years? Later that evening, Ethan asked Samuel to meet him privately. To his surprise, Samuel agreed. They sat in a quiet office overlooking the city lights. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Ethan finally asked the question that had been haunting him. Why did you leave the company? Samuel stared out the window. His expression became distant. Because I lost everything that truly mattered. Ethan listened carefully. Years ago, Samuel had been obsessed with success. Just like Ethan. He worked day and night. Missed birthdays. Skipped vacations. Ignored family dinners. His company grew rapidly, but his family slowly drifted away. Then one terrible night changed everything. Samuel was preparing for an important business presentation when he received a phone call. His wife and daughter had been involved in a car accident. By the time he reached the hospital, it was too late. The two people he loved most were gone. Samuel's voice trembled as he spoke. I spent years building a company and forgot to build a life. Ethan felt a knot form in his stomach. For the first time, he saw Samuel not as a mysterious billionaire, but as a man carrying decades of pain. After that, Samuel continued, money meant nothing to me. So he stepped away from public life. He kept his shares but disappeared from the spotlight. Instead of leading from the top, he chose to watch from the bottom. As a janitor. For 20 years. Observing people. Learning who they really were when nobody important was watching. Then Samuel looked directly at Ethan. And do you know what I learned? Ethan shook his head. The strongest leaders are not the ones people fear. They're the ones people trust. Those words hit Ethan harder than any business loss. Because deep down, he knew Samuel was right. For years, he had chased profits, power, and status. But he had forgotten something important. People. As Ethan left the office that night, he realized Titan Global's biggest problem wasn't the scandal. It was the culture he had created. And unless he changed, he would lose everything. Little did he know, another threat was already forming inside the company. A betrayal that could destroy Titan Global forever. While Ethan was trying to change, someone else was making plans. Victor Hayes, Titan Global's chief financial officer, had secretly been preparing to take control of the company. For years, Victor believed he deserved to be CEO. When Titan Global's scandal broke, he saw an opportunity. Behind closed doors, he met with rival investors. His plan was simple. Force Ethan out. Buy enough shares. Take control of Titan Global. But Victor didn't know one thing. Samuel had been watching him for years. As a janitor, Samuel often cleaned executive offices after hours. People ignored him. And because they ignored him, they spoke freely around him. Samuel had heard enough to know Victor couldn't be trusted. At the next board meeting, Victor confidently presented a proposal to remove Ethan. Several investors agreed. The room became tense. Then Samuel stood up. "I think everyone should see this first." He placed a file on the table. Inside were documents proving Victor had secretly worked with competitors. The room exploded with shock. Victor's face turned pale. "This is a misunderstanding." But the evidence was overwhelming. Within minutes, the board voted unanimously. Victor was fired. Security escorted him out of the building. As the doors closed behind him, Ethan realized something important. The greatest threats don't always come from competitors. Sometimes they come from the people closest to you. But an even bigger challenge was about to arrive. Because Titan Global's future now depended on a decision that only Samuel could make. Everyone waited for Samuel's decision. As majority owner, he could replace Ethan and take full control. During an emergency meeting, Samuel stood before the board. "I have made my decision." The room went silent. Ethan held his breath. Samuel smiled. "Ethan will remain CEO." The executives looked shocked. After everything that had happened, why give him another chance? Samuel turned to Ethan. "Because leaders can learn. The question is whether they choose to." Ethan nodded. For the first time, he understood that leadership wasn't about power. It was about responsibility. Samuel had trusted him one last time. Now he had to prove he deserved it. 1 year later, Titan Global was thriving again. The scandal was gone. The stock price had recovered. Employees were happier than ever. But the biggest change wasn't in the company. It was in Ethan. The once arrogant CEO now listened to employees, respected every worker, and treated everyone with dignity. One morning, he walked through the headquarters and noticed something strange. Samuel's janitor cart was gone. His uniform was gone. Samuel himself was gone. On Ethan's desk sat a handwritten letter. "Ethan, my work here is finished. A company's greatest asset is not money, technology, or power. It is people. Never forget that. Samuel." Samuel quietly retired and disappeared from public life once again. But his lesson remained. Years later, employees still spoke about the mysterious janitor who secretly owned the company and changed the heart of a billionaire CEO. And Ethan never forgot the man who taught him that true power isn't about controlling people. It's about serving them. The end. Final subscribe CTA. If this story surprised you, imagine the secrets hidden behind the world's most powerful boardrooms. Subscribe to Dark Secret of Powerful CEOs for more stories about billionaire secrets, corporate scandals, hidden fortunes, shocking betrayals, and powerful life lessons. Like, comment, and share. And remember, Behind every powerful CEO, there is always a secret waiting to be revealed.